The hum of ancient Terra machinery stirred like a beast long asleep. Deep beneath the scorched crust of old Earth, lights flickered in sterile white, illuminating the forgotten chamber in pulses of cold fluorescence. Lieutenant Cale Ross stood in silence, claws folded behind his back, the glass of his breath mask fogging slightly with each exhale. He didn't like being this close to the cryo tombs. The air smelled wrong, too still, too sterile, like time had held its breath. The pod before him loomed upright, matte black with silver tracing. Etched into its surface were words in the primitive human tongue, still legible after 200 years. Project Nexus, C9 unit / high-risk bioweapon. Do not engage. Cale had no love for Terrans. No Zarnathi did. Humanity had burned too bright and too brief. A savage force that had brought ruin to half the galactic rim before collapsing under its own fury. But desperate times called for dangerous tools. The war against the Korathi swarm was tipping. They needed an edge. "Lieutenant," said Sergeant Zervon, his armored bulk at ease beside him, "this is madness." Cale didn't answer at first. His compound eyes reflected the biometric readout scrolling across the pod's side. Heartbeat irregular, neural activity surging. The human was waking. "We've tried everything else. The etherics are failing. The clone-born revolt. The Korathi breach our systems weekly. Tell me what we haven't gambled with already." "Honor," Zervon muttered. Cale smiled faintly. "That died on Solaris." Steam hissed as the pod's containment seals disengaged. Cold mist poured out, snaking along the floor like ghost smoke. Inside stood a tall figure, human in form, though something about the posture was too still, too poised. Muscles corded beneath scar-scored skin, crisscrossed with embedded tech that hummed like dormant reactors. A black suit clung to his frame, unfamiliar even to Cale, who had spent years cataloging lost Terran technology. The human's eyes remained closed, yet his breathing was steady, calculated. "Vital signs stable," murmured Dr. Kelver through Cale's comlink. "Neural inhibitors online. We're clear. Wake him." A sudden intake of breath broke the silence. The human's eyes opened, cold, gray, precise. Not surprised, not confused. A tactical sweep of the chamber in under 2 seconds. Cale stepped forward, maintaining the posture command. "You are under Zarnathi authority. Designation C9. You are cryo sealed per Earth Command directives after fall. You will now serve under the Unified Axis as a precision strike unit. Your orders come from me." The human didn't move. Cale's hand twitched toward his pulse weapon. "Did he hear me?" "He did," Dr. Kelver confirmed. "Neural sync is active. Language protocols engaged. He understands." Finally, the human blinked. Slow, deliberate. "I am not C9, he said. His voice was calm. Not mechanical, not defiant. Dispassionate. Cale stiffened. "That's your designation. Commander Dorian Vex. Earth's last sanctioned Class X sniper. You're not Earth." Cale ignored the sting. "Humanity collapsed. You didn't. That makes you an asset." Dorian stepped forward, unhurried. No hint of aggression, no wasted motion. The tracking implants glowed faintly at the base of his neck. A biosuppressor embedded in his spinal interface flickered. Then, without any clear action, Cale's HUD glitched. Briefly. Then again. "Wait." Kelver's voice snapped through the comms. "There's something wrong. His inhibitor levels are fluctuating." Too late. Dorian moved. Not fast. Not brutal. Just absolute. His hand rose toward the data console beside his pod and tapped the sequence before any of them could react. The inhibitor signals flatlined. He bypassed a neural gate. Kelver gasped. Cale took a step back. Zervon raised his rifle. "Stand down." Dorian's eyes snapped toward him. The movement froze the sergeant mid-motion. Not with power, with certainty. A look that assessed not if he could kill you, but exactly how he would. And when, "I am not your weapon," Dorian said, tone still even. "You open the box. You don't get to choose what comes out." Cale forced a breath through his mask. "You want freedom? Fine. Earn it. We're fighting a war on 100 fronts. You want a target? We got thousands. The sniper looked at him, truly looked, then nodded once. Coordinates. Load out. Mission file. I'll assess. Kale blinked. You're agreeing? I'm hunting, Dorian replied, voice like dry ice. Whether it's your enemy or you, depends on how useful you are. Kale forced a nervous laugh. You'll find us very useful. Dorian stepped past them toward the corridor. As he walked, his steps made no sound. The cryo mist curled around his feet, like it remembered him. A presence born for war, not peace. Prepare a test run, Kale ordered, watching the sniper disappear around the bend. Give him something with teeth. I want to see what he is when the mask drops. Zervon waited until the human was gone before speaking. He didn't flinch once, not even when you aimed at him. Kale didn't respond, because Kale hadn't aimed. He'd thought about it. And somehow, Dorian had known. Back in the surveillance chamber, Dr. Kelver replayed the biometric data in disbelief. Heart rate never above 60. Cortisol levels flat. No sign of emotional activity. Dorian Vex had been asleep for 2 centuries and woke up ready to kill. The training sands of Threx. 9 were engineered to mimic warfare under hostile gravity, solar distortion, and randomized atmospheric variance. Simulated environments shifted every hour. Scorching winds, red fog, acidic rain. No soldier ever wanted to be stationed there. It was the kind of place built to test failure, not foster victory. Commander Dorian Vex stood at the edge of the shifting terrain, his gaze scanning the horizon. Dust curled in vortexes across the landscape, and the heat shimmered in the distance, playing tricks on depth perception. He didn't blink. He didn't squint. His pupils narrowed into slits as internal optics adjusted to the glare. The Zarnathi called this a trial run. He called it an assessment. Kale Roth watched from the elevated command tower above the simulation dome, arms crossed. What's the squad's readiness? He asked into the comm. 15 soldiers, live rounds, standard formation, replied Dr. Kelver from the terminal. Dorian is equipped with a standard kinetic rifle, no auto-targeting, no drones, no backup, as requested. He didn't request, Kale muttered. He stated. Below, Dorian knelt. The rifle in his hands looked like an extension of his body, not a tool. In the second before the test began, he closed his eyes and listened. There were no birds, no wind, no wildlife. Just the whine of magnetic fields adjusting in the distance, and the faint sound of 15 arrogant hearts beating too fast, too loud. The countdown began. 10 seconds. A sandstorm was scheduled to deploy 2 minutes into the run. Perfect cover. The Zarnathi believed he'd use it to maneuver. They didn't know that cover, to Dorian, was only for the uncertain. 3 seconds. He exhaled. Then he disappeared. Kale leaned forward. What just happened? He's gone from all 3 visual feeds, Kelver said, frantic. Thermal's motion sensors dead. Zervon chuckled, arms folded. Ghost protocol. Kale gave him a look. That's just myth. Was Zervon corrected? Inside the simulation, chaos bloomed with surgical precision. A sharp snap rang out from the far ridge. 1 shot, 1 kill. The Zarnathi soldier, identified as Private Salmek, dropped instantly, a hole through his cranial plate. The squad pivoted, shouting commands. Then another fell. Then another. The first full minute passed with 6 confirmed casualties, each from an angle that made no tactical sense. The sniper wasn't moving traditionally. He was redirecting fire, creating false signatures, bouncing shots through warped glass panels to strike from improbable trajectories. The squad's AI assistant tried to triangulate, then shut down from error overflow. They're panicking, Kelver reported, voice tight. 3 soldiers are requesting extraction. Deny it, Kale said, but we need to know what he is. On the ground, Dorian remained unseen. He moved not like a man but a principle. Where fear bloomed, he appeared. Where confidence returned, he extinguished it. Each shot was not just lethal. It was demoralizing, intentional. A lesson. Sergeant Uran, the squad leader, activated a last-ditch drone. It shot upward, scanning the terrain in all directions. On screen, the tower viewed its feed. Nothing but sand and silence. Then static. Then the drone fell. The bullet hole had entered its primary lens, perfectly centered. Uran shouted something unintelligible. A flash of light burst behind him. He turned to see Corporal Vishek collapse, hit mid-sentence. He turned again and caught a glimpse, a flicker, a movement, but not enough. He fired wildly, screamed. A moment later, silence. 13 minutes from start to finish. 15 targets down. Dorian Vex reappeared, walking calmly through the artificial dusk, rifle slung casually across one shoulder. Not a speck of dust on him, not a trace of strain. He walked to the rendezvous point and stopped. Kale's voice crackled through the comms. You were not instructed to use lethal tactics. Dorian stared at the sky, eyes unreadable. Simulation protocols were marked real response. You could have left them breathing. I wasn't instructed to leave anything. Kale exhaled slowly, returned to base. In the command center, silence lingered for a long moment. Zervon was the first to speak. He didn't enjoy it, but he wasn't conflicted either. Kale nodded. He's calibrated, not emotional, like the old file said. Kelver leaned back from his console. This isn't a weapon. This is a precision event that thinks. Back in the chamber, Dorian passed the locker room. Medics were retrieving simulation bodies. His gaze paused on a cracked helmet lying by the door, a smear of green blood on its side. He studied it, not with pity but finality, an inefficiency resolved. A technician handed him a datapad. Debrief, Commander. He took it, tapped through it once, and erased the record. There won't be a next time like this. Excuse me? I'm done pretending. The technician hesitated. It was only a test. No, Dorian replied, heading toward the lift. It was a warning. Later, Kale and Zervon reviewed the footage alone in the command spire. They ran frame-by-frame breakdowns. Each shot, each movement, each pause, none of it added up. The human moved faster than predicted, reacted before the threats formed, and most unervingly, wasted no energy. He's rewriting everything we know about range warfare, Kale said. Because we never understood humans, Zervon replied. We thought they were extinct. But what they left buried, that was intentional. They put monsters in ice and dared the future to get desperate. Kale turned to him. Do you believe we made a mistake? No, Zervon said. We just ran out of better options. And far below them, as Dorian stepped into his quarters, lights dimmed around him. The walls were lined with reinforced plating, motion sensors, monitors. They thought it would contain him, control him. He sat on the edge of the cot, unhooked his rifle, and laid it across his lap. His fingers moved across the barrel, like a concert pianist testing keys. Somewhere inside, he was still calculating. Range, wind, oxygen saturation, pressure differential. He never stopped, because Dorian Vex was never asleep. He was waiting, and now he had started counting down. The obsidian claw drifted in orbit over a fractured desert moon, its hull cloaked in shifting light-dampening fields. On the outside, it was a shadow in space. On the inside, it was a storm waiting to break. Commander Dorian Vex stood at the end of the observation deck, silent, still, staring out at the horizonless black. The moon below was burning, slowly, methodically, as another rebel sector collapsed under Zarnati bombardment. He didn't blink. His hands rested behind his back, but there was tension in his stance. Not from exhaustion, from readiness. Kale Ross stood a pace behind him, arms crossed, watching the sniper more than the scene. This isn't going to be like the last mission, Kale said, his voice tight with calculation. We've cleared a corridor down to their command center. You'll be dropped, you'll confirm the target, and you'll extract. Dorian said nothing. We're aware the rebels are using clone host bodies. They may resemble Terrans, but they're not. They're imitations. Tactical flesh. Don't hesitate. Still nothing. You'll have a handler this time, Kale added, half expecting an objection. Dr. Rolvin. Neuromonitoring, real-time bioscan feedback. For your safety and ours. Dorian turned slightly. Not enough to be confrontational, just enough to acknowledge the absurdity. My safety, he repeated. His voice, as always, carried no emotion. It was as though he hadn't spoken in years, and when he did, it was purely functional. Kale pressed a small device into his palm. Standard implant check. Signal feedback relay, encrypted. One-touch extraction if necessary. Dorian crushed it in his hand. The device cracked with a dull crunch. He let the pieces fall to the floor. Kale didn't flinch. So be it. Rovin waited for him near the hangar bay. Thin, angular, more technician than soldier. He shifted awkwardly as the sniper approached. Commander, I'll be your link to. Don't speak unless necessary. The dropship descended through an acid-laced atmosphere that rattled the hull like a drum. Lightning flashed outside the viewport, catching on the slick armor plating of the shuttle. Inside, Dorian checked his rifle once. Then again. The action was smooth, ritualistic. Rovin watched from a safe distance, keeping to his station. Target is within the ruins of Sector Theta. Biosignal matches our data. Command believes he's coordinating fleet strikes from underground. Dorian glanced once toward the map feed, then away. I won't need extraction. The shuttle hit dirt. The ramp dropped. Dorian stepped into the storm. Ruined columns jutted from the red sands like jagged teeth. Once, this place had been a colony world, a human one, from long before the collapse. Statues half buried in dunes, crumbled outposts, skeletal towers. Now, it was a tomb dressed as a battlefield. Dorian moved with zero sound. The sandstorm swept across the ruins in chaotic waves, but he advanced like the environment bent around him. His rifle remained motionless at his side, his breath even. No HUD, no drones. No satellites, just wind, memory, and instinct in the ruins ahead. The rebels didn't know they were being hunted. They weren't soldiers in the pure sense. Mercenaries, deserters, ideologues clinging to the dream of a second human rise. Dorian didn't think of them as kin. He didn't think of them at all. The first one died mid-step. No noise, no warning. Just a thud. The second turned at the wrong time. A flash, then silence. From the command deck aboard the Obsidian Claw, Kale watched the biometric feed go dark one blip at a time. He's moving without a trace, Rovin said. There's no pattern, no pulse delay. He's not stalking, he's anticipating. He's purging. Inside the ruins, Dorian passed a shattered mirror. For a moment he saw himself. His reflection stared back, half obscured by dust and war paint, eyes like dull steel. He looked away. The past was irrelevant. The mission was now. In the central structure, a collapsed war dome of glass and bone, he found the target. Not through sensors, not through commands, through silence, a break in the wind, the way the birds didn't fly here, the chill of someone breathing behind a decayed wall. The rebel commander was older than expected. Human, genuinely so. Weathered face, half-armored, eyes haunted. He saw Dorian and froze. I know what you are, the man said, not raising a weapon. They woke you. Dorian raised a rifle slowly. You think you're serving order, but you're a remnant, a leftover ghost from a war no one remembers. The Zarnathi used to fear us. Now they use us like blades. That doesn't bother you? Dorian didn't answer. They say you were put under cryo after wiping out a city of your own people. Because they told you to, because they wanted silence. And you gave it. The rifle remained steady. The commander's voice softened. You're not just a weapon. You're the end of the story. And you've been asleep so long, you don't know who wrote the next chapters. Dorian exhaled once. Slowly. Then he fired. Clean. Efficient. No waste. The echo of the shot rolled across the ruins. Back on the ship, Rovin leaned back from his console. Target eliminated. No collateral. Kale narrowed his eyes. Something's changed. Define change. He's not waiting anymore. Before Rovin could respond, alarms blared across the command deck. Systems dropped offline in clusters. Surveillance feeds scrambled. Control sequences locked out. He's gone, Rovin stammered. I've lost all telemetry. Not jammed, not masked, just blank. Dorian wasn't on the return shuttle. He wasn't on the moon. He wasn't anywhere the Zarnathi had access to. Kale stared at the black monitor, jaw clenched. He broke pattern. There is no mission now. There's just him. In the engine core of the Obsidian Claw, a crew member slumped to the ground. A single hole between the eyes. No alarm triggered. No sensor tripped. And in the dark, something moved. Not a shadow. A decision. The capital world of Zarnathi Prime spun slowly beneath its triple moons, a sphere of silver spires and concentric defense rings, gleaming with the cold efficiency of a species that believed itself untouchable. Every tower pulsed with network thought. Every corridor watched itself. No crime unsolved. No threat undetected. In orbit, fleets drifted in perfect formation, engine trails trailing like silk in the dark. And yet, at precisely 3:14 XST, one tower lost contact with the others. No alarm, no breach warning, just silence. The Supreme Commander's personal guards were the finest bred, genetically selected from birth, trained in multi-gravity combat, immune to sedatives and most forms of neuroinfiltration. Their helmets tracked brainwave fluctuations and heat differentials. Their rifles thought faster than their fingers. None of them fired a shot. The sniper's first round passed through 17 meters of alloy wall, cut between two beams at near molecular precision, and entered the base of Guard 1's skull just beneath the occipital ridge. The second followed less than half a second later. Guard 2, through the heart. Third shot. Helmet ricochet, throat wound. All were dead before their bodies hit the floor. The Supreme Commander stood from his desk in stunned silence. His left eye twitched involuntarily. Activate red protocol, he ordered. The lights didn't respond. His desk folded away as a panic shutter dropped around the room. Sealed. Pressure locked. Shielded. A voice answered, distorted by synthetic filtering. You build a fortress, not a sanctuary. The commander turned slowly. Across the room, beside the blackened statue of the Zarnathi founder, a shape materialized from the wall. A blur, a shimmer, then solidity. Commander Dorian Vex stepped forward. No helmet, no insignia, no emotion. You can't be here, the commander said, but it was more prayer than protest. I'm already here. You were created to serve. Humanity fell. You're a remnant, obsolete. Dorian raised his rifle. Then why do you still fear me? The commander's hand reached for the desk console. A second too slow. The shot severed 3 fingers. The commander fell back, gasping. Dorian advanced without urgency. You woke me, he said. Not because you respected what I was, but because you thought you could cage it. Use it. You're a weapon, the commander snarled. We needed one. You needed a leash, Dorian corrected. And you never had one. Another step forward. Humanity ended itself, the commander hissed. We didn't fire the last shot. You did. Dorian stopped. I followed orders. Yours were different. The commander lunged suddenly for the emergency override switch embedded beneath the floor. A desperate movement. Claws extended. But Dorian didn't fire. He simply stepped aside, twisted, and brought the rifle down across his Zarnathi's spine in a single, precise motion. The commander collapsed in a heap, twitching, paralyzed. I could have ended this at the moon, Dorian said. But symbols matter. Silence isn't enough. They have to see the last voice fall. He turned to the wall and triggered the uplink. Across every monitor on Zarnathi Prime, across every vessel in the fleet, every orbital station, and every training dome, the feed went black, then static, then Dorian's face. No helmet, just gray eyes, distant stars reflected in their calm. You built empires from extinction, he said. You harvested ghosts and built them into machines. But ghosts don't forget, and some wait to be remembered. Behind him, the commander's twitching form was barely visible. You thought you could bury humanity beneath your boots, and when it suited you, you dug up our dead and asked them to serve. He paused. You didn't wake a soldier. He turned slightly, revealing the wreckage of the high chamber, walls cratered from ricochet fire. You woke a consequence. The feed cut. In the orbital defense rings, autocannons spun wildly, unable to identify targets. Their threat matrices were blank. Every human profile flagged as classified unknown. Every access code scrambled. Every override denied. Explosions began to bloom across the northern hemisphere. Fuel depots ruptured. Communication towers went dark. And from the night sky, hundreds of small, silent shuttles began descending, empty, lifeless, but armed with payloads. Not nuclear, not kinetic, just broadcasts. Each message was different. A voice, a scream, a recording. From 200 years ago, the last cries of Earth's fall, replayed, unfiltered, inescapable. And somewhere inside a secondary research facility, buried below the wastelands of a forgotten moon, a cryopod blinked. Lights turned green. Steam hissed. Project Nexus, Unit C-10. Status, active. The door opened.